Hi friends, for our very first monthly art activity for the flynncrafthouse Patreon, I wanted to walk you through a very general guide on how to start your sketchbook spread. Our Patreon is meant to kind of guide you through a daily art practice, provide you with some inspiration, some guidance as you work, and accountability. So I want to start with this, but I want to preface everything by saying that remember that your practice is yours and yours alone. And although you might draw some inspiration from some of the things, feel free to embark on your own journey, move in your own direction, and don't feel like any of this is required. You just do what you feel good about, do what works for you. All of the things I'm going to suggest to you are going to be, suggestions. They're for you to practice if you like and take what you want and leave what you don't. As you know, the benefits of sketchbook practice are things that I preach about on my Instagram and beyond in my classroom. I think there's so many great things about drawing every day or drawing regularly and what it can provide for you. One of the things is that it really helps you with your ability to record information. So drawing ability. The more you do it, the better you get. I like sketchbook spreads, particularly for this, which was always the thing that was the hardest for me as a student and continues to give me struggles even to this day, composition. Composition is also known as like organizing. Where do you put everything? Where does it exist in your picture plane? And then finally, designing, figuring out how things look together, where they go, and then how they work together to tell stories, right? So all of these things are great things that you can practice on your sketchbook. I think that a sketchbook practice is really beneficial because there's so many spreads in a good sketchbook, a nice thick sketchbook. You'll have a lot of pages and you can practice every time, and every time will hopefully be an improvement. So we're going to start today by walking through one of the prompts for this month, for September. And I'm going to give you some ideas about how I would start this and some suggestions for your own practice. Again, take what you like from this, leave what you don't. So some of the things that I think would make your sketchbook spread really interesting and unique are the following things. So I'm going to write them down, and these will hopefully be like kind of a reminder to kind of explore or experiment in these ways. Scale changes, scale variations. These kinds of things can add a lot to a sketchbook spread. So small things, big things, a little bit of both, a little bit in between, right? Scale variations. I think a good sketchbook spread also looks really strong if you have like color uniformity. And color uniformity is, I think, important because sometimes, especially on a sketchbook spread, you have so many different things happening that the uniformity of color is going to help to tie everything together. So it's going to help create harmony in the work. And also, I think variation, just variety or contrast. We want to have a good amount of different things to look at and things that are, again, unified by concept or theme, right? So we have a conceptual alignment, which just means everything is along the same idea. So in our case, we're using a prompt for that. So I like to keep these things handy so I don't forget them. These are the things I'm going to keep track of as I work on my sketchbook spread. Now, I have already chosen some colors to work with. I'm trying to work with something like a little bit unusual. I thought I would kind of take a play on a primary color scheme, which would be like yellow, red, and blue. And I just chose some different options for that. So I have 2 yellows really, and then a blue and 2 reds. The pink, I guess, falls into kind of the red family. And so we're going to try these and see how they look together. But even if they're not quite exactly the colors that you see in the photos, I'm just going to rely on these. Usually I like to have a dark and a light, and then the rest can be somewhere in the middle. So I think it's a good idea to always start with like a little swatch so you know how these colors look. Especially when you're working with these Tombow markers, I feel like the color caps don't accurately reflect what we're seeing. This is the marker I broke. But this will give us a little bit of an idea of like what we are looking at in terms of value. Value just refers to light and dark. So I know just by looking at these now that this is like one of my darkest ones, and this one is too. And these are somewhere in the middle. I think this is the lightest one right here. So I'm just going to put a plus for the light one, and this is also a light. And then these two are probably somewhere in the middle. They're medium. So these are my two darks, these are my two lights, and these are in the middle. So using those colors, I'm just going to choose whenever I see dark stuff in the photo, I'm going to use the darks. And whenever I see light stuff in the photos, I'm going to use the lights. And that's generally how I work. And I always like to start by sketching with something really light. I'm going to use this pink. So again, I want scale variation. I want color uniformity. I already have that. I want scale variation, so I'm going to draw big and small, and then I want a variety of different things. So I'm going to take the prompt that we have first, which is coffee. This is our 3rd week prompt, but I'm going to go ahead and work with that one so that hopefully by the time you're able to watch this video, you are in that week. So I'm going to start with one of these reference images from our prompt collection. One of my favorite things to draw, which is a mocha pot. And so I have a photo of a mocha pot, and I like to start with something light. I'm going to make it fairly large. So I kind of visualize how big I want this to be. Again, scale variation. So I'm going to start with something big, which means that everything else can be kind of smaller. And I just like to kind of break things up. Sometimes I'll put some guides for myself here just so I can keep track of like how big I can be. I want to keep like the handle in the picture plane. I don't want it to crop off, but even if you did want it to crop off, I think that could be pretty cool. Cropping is actually something that I always have to encourage my students to try because they would rather, they sometimes want to force objects to fit into the picture plane. And that can make the proportions look really weird. So I'm just going to start by sketching it out really loose. Not super worried about getting it to be just right. And here's going to be the cap. Somewhere around here. Now I love kind of sketching them out just really loosely like this, because if I find that it's not quite right at this point, I can continue to kind of tweak it. I have a tendency to draw with a lot of sketchy marks. And if you prefer to sketch in with a pencil, please, by all means, feel free to do that. I'm just not much of a pencil sketcher. And one of the downsides to that is I end up having a lot of wonky proportions, which kind of like I'm okay with that, but some people are not. So if you want it to be really like precise, feel free to sketch with pencil, get it right before you start to go in there. But one of the things I do want to remind you about is like, I think that for a daily practice, sometimes it can be challenging to work every day when you are so driven by perfection, because you might not have time to finish if you're working like really hard on getting the sketch just right. So I would like to tell you now that if you feel like this is something that you can try not to labor over the sketch. Just get in there quickly, as fast as you can, so that you can get into the good stuff, the drawing part, right? And I'm hoping that for you, that'll give you the opportunity to work a little bit more quickly and then potentially fit more drawing into your life, because you're not spending like hours and hours just doing the sketches. But of course, I also want you to feel like you should do what feels right for you. So do what you think is going to work for you, but that's my recommendation. Just kind of sketch it in lightly, and it's not perfect, that's okay. So I've got my sketch in. I can see that this is black and this is black, so I know those are going to need to be dark. So I can start to work on that one. But also, if this is like helpful for you, and I think I'm going to try this on mine. I don't usually do this, but I'm going to go ahead and kind of sketch in the shapes for everything before I start to really focus on drawing a lot of detail in here. So I'm going to go ahead and find another subject to draw here. The good thing is that everything's in this prompt collection. So you can easily come back and find the reference photo that you were using for that one because it's still there. I have this one thing, it's big. I'm going to try to put something else in that will be like a different size, or even like you know, to help balance it, I'm going to work on this side. I also feel free to draw over the center. For me, that's not an issue. If you feel like that's something you maybe don't want to do, then you can work on individual sides. So I'm going to go on to this next one, which is like a little sign, and it says coffee, and I'm going to put it right here. And I'm just going to kind of sketch it out very lightly. It's long and narrow. It has a box within the box that is even more narrow. And the letters of the word fit within that space. So usually when I do lettering, I try to always kind of sketch it out first to make sure it fits, because it happens all the time where I make something too big or too small, and then I have to go back and fix it. So I kind of like fit everything in there first, and then I can kind of look at now I can focus on getting the shapes of the letters a little bit more accurate. I'm drawing that in. And this one, I didn't notice it before, but it connects here. And it wraps around and actually comes up here. So this actually shouldn't be there, but I'll just get rid of that later. It's like an open gap right there. Okay. So I have this in. There's some tiny little screws here because it's placed on the wall. So I'm going to put that on there too. So I have my sign kind of sketched in. I'm going to find another one. So I think with sketchbook spreads, one of the things that I like to think about is like, how can I explore this topic? Sometimes it might be helpful to make a list of imagery. I always encourage my students to do that. Start with a list, and then you have a bunch of stuff to draw from. But we have a prompt collection on Unsplash, so you can just pick from that. Find another picture that you think works for you. And we're going to draw that in. So I have the mocha pot. I have the coffee sign. I'm going to add a little cup of coffee right here. This is going to be pretty big right here. This is a circle. A handle. It's an overhead or like an aerial view. We sometimes call this bird's eye view. So this is nice because it's variety. We have the side view here. We have a side view here. But then here we have an overhead view or a bird's eye view. It's got a little bit of latte art on it. Something that looks kind of almost like a heart. I'll come back in and develop that later. This is the saucer. And I do like the shadow that it has right here. So I'm just going to kind of sketch that in with my marker. Okay, so I have a general idea of where this goes. There's a lot of shadow here as well. So I'm going to put that in. Okay. I'm going to come back over here to my prompt image collection. And a couple of other suggestions I have for you. If you get to a point where you feel like you don't know what to draw, I recommend a couple of things. And I have like a short list of things that I ask my students to explore if they are feeling like they don't know what to do. So you have lots of different images, and I would recommend that you try this. Try to get an image that zooms in and one that zooms out, right? So a close-up and like a zoomed out view. Try to find an image that is like an alternative viewpoint, alternate view. So a side view, a top view, some other different version of it. Try to find something related. So something that you make an association with coffee. I would think of sugar and spoons and the coffee pot or the mocha pot, coffee beans. All of those things are related, and you can put those in. And then I also like to include words, and I already have words here with this. But these might be good guides for how to embark on this subject matter, especially when you get to a point where you maybe don't remember or you don't know what you want to do next. So here's my cup of coffee. I'm going to come over here to this photo with the coffee beans, and I think that could be a fun one to do. This will be my small stuff. These are all pretty big. So in this area right here, I'm going to make a little pattern of coffee beans. Now the photo that I have on that Unsplash board, they're kind of spread out, but I'm going to put them a little closer together because I think that might work better for me. I don't want to use too much of the space because I want to draw some more things in there. And I do like the shadows, so I'm just going to include where those shadows go. It kind of helps me to plan my composition. And usually they say that odd numbers are better than even numbers. So if you get a chance to draw multiples of things, try to pick an odd number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's better. So I have 7 coffee beans there. So I have plenty of room there. I have some room here and here and here. So I also have this great image that I really like, and it's got these little wooden boards, and the boards have these little signs that are like not paper, but like plastic little signs that have individual letters. That's very like trendy right now in coffee shops. This kind of like very vintage, old-fashioned aesthetic where the sign was made from like individual pieces. I love that, and so I'm going to add that here. This coffee here. Now, another thing to think about when you're doing text letters, I like drawing letters quite a bit, but not everyone does. So if this is not for you, you can pick a different image. But when you're drawing letters, it's really, well, I think it's important. Maybe it's not. If you don't think this is important, you don't have to do it, but I think one of the key things is to draw the letters the way you see them instead of trying to draw them in your own handwriting. It can get a little tricky when we're accustomed to writing with our own handwriting. So we tend to want to just rely on our own handwriting for lettering. This says espresso. So I'm trying to look at the letters and the font that we see here and copy that. And you can see that not all of mine is going to fit here. And I'm going to cut it off right about there so that way it kind of cuts off right here alongside that. I think I'll do one more. And for this one, I mean, it's going to go really close to my mocha pot. In fact, ideally, I would love it if it would go behind. So I might try to bring that up a little higher when the time comes to draw that in a little bit more. But this is kind of the planning stage for my spread. Now, I don't really usually spend that much time planning, but I think that's probably why sometimes I struggle with my compositions. So planning is a good thing. If you're not into planning, you can just draw. Just start drawing. That's how I usually do it because I might be in a hurry. I don't have time. I don't want to spend more than like a day on this or something like that. And so I might just move forward, and I respect that and encourage you to do that if that works for you, if that process works for you. This one's also really cute. There's some spoons and 2 cups and like a little pastry of some sort. I'm going to draw the spoon. The spoon is kind of far away. It's a little hard to see, but I'm just going to use it as a general guide. And there's 2 of them, so I guess I'm going to do the second one here. 2 spoons, and I'll definitely have to go in and add some shading there. Let's see if I can find something to add here. A lot of these coffee images have like greenery, like foliage in there too. So maybe some leaves would be a good addition. Might be a nice addition that, we're not expecting. I'm going to add one in here. There's some leaves. This one is actually really long, but I don't want it to go too far into that. So I'm going to make it look like it's underlapping there. And I'm going to stop it a little bit shorter than it really would be. But I like those there. I think they add a nice touch, and I think I'm going to add some down here. I'm going to draw this one a little bit bigger so it kind of looks like it's going to crop the page. This one bends a little unusually. And I'm getting pretty close to filling up my page, which is wonderful because that means I can start to play with the development of all the shapes. And I think this composition looks pretty good. I think it would be nice if I added like a rogue coffee bean over here. So it's okay like to also think about like maybe at the end, if you see some little gaps that you think could benefit from a few more things, add them in. We're just mixing and matching pieces from different images to create our own unique composition. This is a great way to take ownership of these photos, especially because they're not ours. They're not, like I didn't photograph these. So I really want to try to make them, come together in a new, different way. And that way I can, like it's more mine. It becomes mine. Okay. I think that's pretty good. I have a lot of stuff here. I might add a couple more leaves into this. This is not part of the composition, so you can see it a little bit more clearly. And then I'm going to begin to develop those spaces. So the way you treat them is going to be really up to you. It depends on what materials you're going to use. This is going to be a good, helpful way to start your composition. Just figure out where you want everything to go. Find the right sizes for them. Find the right placement for them. Explore that prompt collection. And then when you have them laid out, this is the time when you can start to play with them. So if you're working a little bit at a time, feel free to just do one per day and then kind of build up the composition over time, over the week as you tackle this prompt. I'm going to keep working on this one and I'll share a photo with you when I'm done. Lots of luck to you on your first sketchbook spread if you're just starting to make one today. I hope you have fun, and if you have any questions, do feel free to reach out to me. Happy drawing!